Hey all, and welcome to Shadow Space. And we are commenting on another BCB video. This is called Woke Black Democrat Governor Admits He Would Allow His Teenage Son to Undergo Sex Change for Votes. This was uploaded May 8th. This is being recorded May 9th, and link is in the description.
Two questions on SNAP. One, are you for SNAP not being given to many of these illegal immigrants and folks who are taking it at percentages higher where that money needs to be going to Americans for people that need it rather than for people that are coming to take advantage of the system?
Yeah, and honestly, that's the way the system is structured now, right? Is that
Abuse is there, though.
Well, but then abuse is one thing, right? And abuse, if anyone is breaking the law, then of course you need to be accountable for being able to break the law. But what we're talking about and the way the system is structured right now is that it's a joint responsibility between the federal government and our states to be able to provide supplemental nutrition for our kids. And honestly, it's a better thing for all of us because, like, I don't want my kids going to school hungry. I don't want my kids,
Do you not work that your kids would be going to school hungry?
suffering from illnesses that are now going to cost more money for them to have to go to emergency rooms and deal with. The more people I can have being productive members of my community, the less money I have to spend on social services. And so I actually think this is actually a good investment to be able to do these things. And if the president is going to adjust it, my point is this, then have a conversation with the nation's governors who are your partners.
I don't think
Inside of
that's
this
right.
But you cannot just unilaterally decide that you're going to adjust it and, again, violate the law to do it and then expect for us to just come up with it. That's not the way a partnership is supposed to work.
Boy. So we got to talk about a fascinating clip from the PBD podcast featuring Wes Moore, who is the governor of Maryland. His nickname out in Maryland is Tax More, Spend More, right? Because that's essentially what he does, right? Standard normie Democrat who is captured by the far left, okay? And that's what I got to talk about here when it comes to this conversation, where Patrick McDavid is going to confront Wes Moore on his stance when it comes to trans issues. And I think that this is a great example of what it looks like for a politician, aka Democrat, to sell out to the far left, right? He knows what the common sense position is. He understands what the common sense position is, but because he's a Democrat, and also on top of that, there's speculation that he's going to be running for president in 2028. I'm not sure if he's actually going to run, but I do believe that he's a shoe-in to be the VP, right? I do think he's the number one guy to be VP because he has all the qualities that a Democrat would typically have to be VP. The number one quality.
Yeah, but so is Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert. And I feel like there was something the other day that was talking about they were going to run. And I can't think of who it would have been. Doesn't matter.
A liar, right? So because of that, I think he has the number one spot. He checks the
Gavin Newsom.
woke
Isn't Gavin Newsom said that he's going to run maybe?
boxes, right? The victimhood boxes. Okay. He's a governor. He's, a dude that I think has a good shot at being VP. Okay. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this conversation because I found his answer here to a particular question from PBD to be shameful. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Yep.
Walk me through one of the issues that was just an absolute, it caused so many people to become independent, and that is men competing in women's sports, okay? Transgenders. Where are you at there? I understand at the beginning, everybody's like, well, what is this? Some people that are maybe Democrats or maybe even independents saying, what's the argument? We should let them be able to transition, and now we're having men compete against women. That's the part where it completely stops. Where are you at with that?
So I can tell you, I think about this as a parent, right? And I think about this as someone with a 12-year-old son, 14-year-old daughter. I want them to get from sports the same thing that I got from sports, where it gave me a chance to be a part of a team, It gave me a chance to learn great life lessons. Like from sports, I learned how to win and how to lose. And it gave me a chance to compete fairly. And I think we have to always show a sense of humanity in where we are. We want to make sure that we're protecting all of our kids. We want to make sure we're doing that. But if the competition becomes unfair, I think that's where you have to be able to draw a line. And I think there's ways you can do it. I think there's, one thing I know is that our local jurisdictions are actually the ones who are responsible for this. And actually, I think that's a good thing. Like, I don't think that the president or a governor should be getting involved in something that is actually a decision of a local jurisdiction. And I trust local jurisdictions to be able to figure this out. However, I also know when I think about it from the perspective of my daughter, I want her to be safe and I want her to be able to compete fairly.
Then you don't want it up to the states? Who decides what's fair?
And I think that both of those two things can live simultaneously, where you can provide measurements for people and all young people to get the same benefits in sports that we all got, but also know I do not want my child to have it be either unfair or unsafe.
You haven't
for her.
answered it yet. So
No, I just
no
did.
men competing in women's
Yeah, no, I don't think that that's something that we should allow.
Okay.
Now, I do, again, it's local jurisdictions that, and I think it should be up
leave
to
it
local
to them, not a
jurisdictions.
federal. So you don't want it to be a federal thing deciding whether. So do you think puberty blockers given to kids?
Okay, so before we get into the transition here, right? One of the reasons why I'm analyzing this clip is because you got to be aware of the type of tricks that Democrats are going to pull in the midterms and going into 2028. There's going to be a certain segment of Democrats who are going to realize, okay, in order to win independence, right? Especially if things get better for the economy when it comes to, I think that the economy is like the number one thing that the Trump administration should be focused on right now, to be honest with you. If the economy gets better, Democrats going to have a hard time, I'm telling you, right? There are going to be some Democrats who realize, okay, in order to win people who actually have common sense, I'm going to have to give an answer on the trans issue that actually sounds like something that somebody with common sense could get on board with, right? To not completely be a sellout. However, in pursuit of not looking like a complete sellout, they expose themselves as cowards, right?
Well, see, because you are really only looking for one answer, which is no. Sports are differentiated based on sex and should be treated as such as all levels. What was his answer? Well, local jurisdictions should decide, but if it were my daughter, I wouldn't want them to compete against a trans person. So they want the state to be able to say, yes, we want trans people to be able to participate in the sport that aligns with their chosen gender identity. They want the states to be able to allow trans people in the sports of their choice, but then he would not want trans people to compete against his daughter. So what is his position? What does he actually believe? Does he think that trans people should be in women's sports? Or just trans people should be in the sport of their gender? Or not? Because I've heard the argument be that, in, elementary school, like, yes, for like gym class, but even when I was in elementary school, we had, sex-based divisions in the sports.
Because this answer right here from Wes Moore was a cowardly answer. Let me tell you why. He basically says, as governor, of Maryland, he personally does not agree with biological boys competing against biological girls in sports. AKA, if it was up to him solely, right? Just his opinion, I don't think it's fair. Because
Well,
he has a daughter.
I mean, not even his opinion. If he would gladly watch, what's her name? Oh boy, you're gonna put me in the spot. Riley Gaines, right? Swimmer against Leah Thomas. And that's acceptable to him. That's, inclusion, whatever. But if it was his daughter, no, he would not want that. He would fight tooth and nail to make sure that she had a pathway to do as best as she could without something like that getting in the way.
He has a daughter.
It's self-centered. He would do it for himself. He would not do it for other people.
That he doesn't want unfairly competing in sports. So he's acknowledging at least basic reality when it comes to sports, right? He's acknowledging that. Okay, he got that down. However, he says, well, I think it's a local issue. He thinks it's a local, aka, I personally believe it's unfair, but I'm too much of a coward to actually do anything about it at the state level, right? I'm not going to actually...
So then he wouldn't actually stop a trans person from competing against his daughter, because if he would, then he would not allow it to be discussed on a state level. He wouldn't even allow it to happen. The answer should be flatly no. And I would overturn anything that allowed trans people in official sanctioned competition to participate in the gender of their choice. That wasn't his answer.
Implement a policy that aligns with what I believe to be an unfair policy. I'm going to allow localities to decide what they want to do, aka liberal counties that want to allow it, right? Hey, I'm cool with that. I'm not going to get involved. Okay? Now, when Democrats say stuff like this, they only really mean that for liberal counties, like autonomy for liberal counties. They don't mean that for...
Well, what does it mean? If a district or if a city, if a county votes, no trans, like, how would that work? You're a state that allows transgender people. You have a match out of state. Okay, if you go to a state where transgender people are not allowed to compete, do they just stay home? Do they have to sit on the bench the whole time? Are they allowed to compete now? Like, how does this work?
Counties and conservative areas of the state, right? Conservative towns who say, hey, we want to ban this, right? They don't mean it. They'll launch lawsuits, right? They'll fight that, but then they'll allow it in liberal areas. For example, Letitia James out in New York, Nassau County, they implemented their own transgender policies for sports, and Letitia James sued them, right? Sued them because they were banning biological boys competing against biological girls. Letitia James said, no, we don't believe in local control, not when it comes to doing something that we don't agree with, right? Which should tell you everything you need to know about their real position. The real position that Wes Moore is too afraid to say because he knows that it's not a defensible position is they actually do believe this is a federal issue. They believe that the federal government should not allow red states or red areas or conservative areas to ban biological boys from competing against biological girls in sports. But they can't say that because it's politically unpopular, right? They can't say that out loud.
It's politically unpopular for them and the party that they've chosen to align themselves with. If they weren't Democrats, it wouldn't matter. They would just be mega extremists with the rest of us. No. In order for him to maintain his status as a Democrat, he has to at least pretend that he acknowledges the talking points.
So the way they would do it is that they would fight it in the courts, right? They would try to legislate through the courts. They go after these red states that ban it and then say, well, look, we believe in local control, right? But in the courts, they'll be fighting local control, right? They only believe in allowing liberal areas to do what they want to do. That's all they believe in, right? All of a sudden, Democrats are for local control, but look at the issue of abortion.
Well, because abortion is a very similar issue, which is they don't even want just state control. Well, arguably, trans people don't just want state control. They want to be able to just do it. Okay, well, women who want abortions don't want just state control. They want to be able to just have abortions.
Right? This is what Democrats believe. I just want you guys to understand how inconsistent this is, right? Democrats believe that when it comes to abortion, we're talking about a human life and a decision that a woman should be allowed to make when it comes to ending that human life. Democrats say, no, this is a federal issue. The federal government should tell states that they can't stop a woman from aborting her baby, right? AKA killing her baby, because
Which,
that's what she's doing.
if it were legal, if you were allowed to do it, you wouldn't have to make a law saying that you couldn't not interfere.
Right? That's what she's doing.
Like, why does that need to be
Democrats
legislated?
believe that the federal government should be involved in not allowing states to prevent the loss of human life. But now all of a sudden they believe that the federal government shouldn't be involved in the issue of transports, right? Feels like inconsistency to me. And the inconsistency is there because of cowardice, first and foremost, because they can't say their real position out loud. But it also shows you that they will pick and choose what they believe to be federal issues and non-federal issues based off whatever benefits them, right? Politically. There's no core underlining principle or anything like that. For example, when it comes to our elections, they boohoo, whine, and cry about federalizing our elections when it comes to Republicans passing the SAVE Act, passing any type of voter integrity or election integrity legislation. They don't want that. Oh, no, you can't federalize our elections.
Well,
but when it comes
think like this redistricting. The moment they start to lose, the moment they start to feel their grip lessen, they have to figure out some new way to rig the system in order to keep what they gained.
Making our elections less safe when it comes to banning gerrymandering, which Democrats claim they don't believe in, except only in blue states, by the way, right? Only in blue areas of the country do they actually believe in it, okay? They think it should be allowed. But they claim that we want a national ban on gerrymandering. So when it comes to what Democrats want to do, all of a sudden they believe in federalizing our elections. Do you guys understand what I'm saying here, right? There's no consistency to their beliefs outside of whatever benefits them. And I just wish they will be honest about it. Just be honest. Democrats will take any position, as long as they believe it will help them get power. That's it. There's no issue where they'll be like, look, I'm not going to sell out on that issue, right? On this issue, I'm going to stand my ground. There's no issue like that for Democrats. That's the when you realize that, then you understand what we're dealing with. These are not independent thinkers, right? These guys, again, they don't have any underlying core ideology outside of whatever I need to say to get elected.
Well,
that's it.
Because, I mean, like socialism, like it sounds good, but fundamentally it's a very flawed system.
Because Wes Moore is basically saying, look, I know personally that I wouldn't want my daughter to compete against biological boys. I know it's unfair, and I don't want my daughter to go through it. I don't think it's fair. I don't think we should allow it. But I'm willing to allow somebody else's daughter to go through it, right?
Yeah, see, and
I'm going to let somebody else.
that's the hypocrisy. That doesn't make any sense. You say that you don't want it to happen, but then you say that the mechanisms should be in place to allow it to happen. These two things cannot exist at the same time. You cannot have it and not want it at the same time. If you have it, then you wanting it is irrelevant. There's a good chance that you're going to get it. If you don't want it, then you shouldn't put the mechanisms in place for them to be able to do it. The answer should just be, no, I do not want trans people in the sport of their preferred gender. That is the only answer. If they say anything other than that, then it's wrong. This was not that. This was Kamala Harris word salad nonsense that basically meant I do want it, but because I'm not allowed to say that I don't want it, because otherwise my party will throw me out, will call me a right-wing extremism, and I'll just get shut down, I have to say, no, I want this.
Daughter compete unfairly, even though I know it's wrong. I don't want my daughter to do it, but I'm gonna let somebody else's daughter do it because, well, I gotta win elections, right? I gotta win elections, right? That's Wes Moore.
I mean,
that's what this
that's a career politician. That's someone who's in the game for the long haul, not someone who's in there because they truly think that the system doesn't work and they want to change it.
all about. Hey, I don't want to piss off my liberal base, so I'm going to take the coward's way out, right? He's not going to say what Democrats actually believe, right, when it comes to their real policy position on this issue, okay? But also on top of that, he's not going to stand up for his own core beliefs. He's not going to stand up for other people's daughters in a way that he would stand up for his own daughter on this issue, right?
Well,
It's amazing.
it brings into question, would he stand up for his daughter? How would he stand up for his daughter? If he allowed states to decide, or his city where his daughters go to school, if they decided that trans people should be allowed in women's sports, and his daughter had to compete against a trans person, what would he do? Would he do what a lot of these girls do sometimes and forfeit the match? What would they do? What would he do? What would his punishment, what would his action be to course correct from this situation?
Under the age of 18 should be a federal decision. It should be a state
It would,
or local
it
decision.
would be legal for them to do it. It would be legal for them to play in the sport. So how would he prevent his daughter from actually having to compete against this trans person? I don't think he could.
Well, all of them right now are local decisions.
Okay.
All of them right now are local decisions. But I think that
Unless he
just
just
like many
quit,
things
unless
when
he
it comes
just
to our
didn't.
kids, parental involvement does matter. Like I want, if for my 14-year-old and my 12-year-old, local.
It's amazing.
Under the age of 18 should be a federal decision. It should be a state or local decision.
Well, all of them right now are local decisions.
Okay.
All of them right now are local decisions. But I think that just like many things when it comes to our kids, parental involvement does matter. Like I want.
See, but so this also is a problem that I have with the trans argument, is that he says, no, absolutely not. Kids kids younger than 16, 18, I don't know what his cutoff is. No, absolutely not. But when they're 21, but when they're older, so when the child is under the supervision of the parents, then they are not allowed to do it. Unless they have the parents' permission, I suppose, which I have a feeling he isn't going to ask him, but I have a feeling that if you did ask him, he would say, yeah, if the parents think that it's necessary, then they should be able to do it. But then you allow them to do it when they're adults. Okay, well, then you allow them to do it, just not when they're younger. It's the same thing. It's somewhere. So you aren't against it. You're for it. You are for people transitioning. You just don't want kids to transition. I don't. You. So just to me, that doesn't.
If for
I
my
mean,
14-year-old
it
and my
still happens, and as long as it still happens, then there's going to be some portion of the population that's going to groom itself to be ready to undergo these procedures, to do these things.
I want to be involved in a decision-making process, especially for something that has lasting implications on their life.
Okay, question. We're both parents. I got 4 kids, 14, 12, 9, and 4.
Yeah.
Your son comes in saying he wants to transition. What do you do?
Well, first, I mean, if it's my son, so I love him regardless, right? And he's always going to have my undying love. That's me, right? I want to make sure that I'm involved in understanding where he is, how he's feeling, the way he's feeling, why he thinks it's important. If this is a journey that he wants to go down.
So, see, again, so I don't think we should be transitioning kids, but if my kid came to me and they gave me strong enough reason to convince me that they wanted to transition, I would allow them to do it. Presumably at any age. He didn't say he would wait until they were 18, until they were 21 to reach some sort of age milestone marker. No, just do it.
I want him to always be comfortable in his own skin. And I want him to always know that he has a partner in me to help him along that journey.
Would you advise him to wait till he's 18?
If this is how he is feeling, and I feel like I'm
See, so no. So if a young child, if a pubescent teenager wants to take hormone replacement therapy because they are convinced without a shadow of a doubt that they were designed to live their life as the opposite sex, then you don't think that there should be an age limit.
closely tied to him. I'm not going to advise him on something that he feels is
At 14
right.
years old, Wes?
No, I understand it. But what I'm saying is the most important thing for me is I want him to feel safe in his own skin. Safe in his
Okay, but so, like, someone who wants to get a tattoo doesn't feel comfortable in their own skin until they get a tattoo, and yet we have age limits on when you can get a tattoo. We have those things on tattoos, drinking, smoking.
own decision making, but also know that at 14 years old, I want to be involved inside of that process as well. I'm
Because
not going to
the only actual argument that you could have for transitioning kids that are going through puberty is to change their puberty with hormone replacement before that window is gone and you don't have the opportunity. That is the only rationale for why you would target children specifically.
condemn him nor castigate him. I'm not going to kick him out of the house. I'm not going to do anything that's going to hurt him.
Yeah. So
But I just want to make
No one said for you to do any of those things. Is there a way that you can convince him not to transition without doing any of those things? Especially as a young kid. Clearly not, because his answer is just let him do
sure
it.
that I'm involved.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. This guy is a politician's politician, right? Again, this is why I think that he's a shoe-in to be VP. Because I'm telling you, he is such a weasel, right? Like you literally have to break down these answers. for you guys to understand how he's trying to weasel out of the issue, but he's making himself look so much worse because of the fact that he's trying to not upset a certain group of people while at the same time trying to sound sane.
Well, it's what happens when your answer is inauthentic. It's what happens when your answer is fake. You have to you're saying what you think they want to hear, not what you actually think. You dance around it.
And what he doesn't understand is that there's no middle ground. You can't do that. Basically, what this guy just said publicly, this is what he's saying publicly. I want to be involved in a decision if my son wants to transition his gender, right? Transition his sex, whatever you want to call it. His teenage son, he wants to be involved. Sounds reasonable, right? The first thing that comes out of his mouth sounds reasonable. And then listen to literally the next thing that comes out of his mouth is that, well, I want to be involved, but at the same time, I don't really want to tell him either way, right? So how does that make sense, right? The whole point of being involved is so that you can guide your son through the process. And if you're going to be guiding him, then clearly you're going to want to guide him in one or two.
If you're going to guide him through the process, then there's a chance that he's going to want to transition. And if there's a chance that he's going to want to transition, then you have to keep that option open to him. So you aren't against children transitioning, because if his child had decided that he wanted to transition, then he would let his child transition. If he had a strong enough reason and he was included in the process, then he would allow it to happen.
Two directions. Either you're going to say, hey, son, don't do this, right? Which is what I personally believe he believes. That's what he would tell his son. I know, like, I am 99% certain that Wes Moore in his private life would be telling his son. No.
See, again, based on his answer, what do you think his answer to that question actually would be? I don't know. I honestly don't.
No, right? And I'm sure he would not feel good about that, right? I'm sure it would not be something that he'd be very happy about, okay? I'm very certain of this. He ain't that far left, but I'm just giving you an example of how these Democrats have to sell out, right? And it's so shameful. It's so shameful because we know their real position, but they can't say it because they don't want to piss off a certain group of people. This guy, Wes Moore, says, I want to be involved.
It's either they don't want to piss those people off, which I do agree with, or it's typical Democrat behavior where they want to act like their position is the morally upright position. Their position is the humanitarian position. Their position is the one that takes everyone's feelings into account.
Parents should be involved. I would be involved in the kid's decision, but I'm not going to tell him what to do. AKA, well, I'm not going to tell him not to transition. Well, why is he saying that? Because he doesn't want to piss off the people who would be upset if he publicly said that he would discourage his son from transitioning before the age of 18. I'm pretty sure he would discourage his son from transitioning, period, to be honest with you, right? Over 18, under 18, I'm pretty sure that's his real position. But he can't say that.
See, this right here is the problem. What is his real position? This is like Gavin Newsom. What is his real position? Does he have one? Do you know?
So basically he takes a coward's position and doesn't really say anything at all. Which logically to me, in terms of what he's saying publicly, leads me to believe that you would just allow it. So you would allow your son, who's under the age of 18, to undergo sex change operations, right? Puberty blockers?
Yes. If he was a part of the process and his son decided, this is what I want to do, this is what I believe my life is supposed to look like, then yes, he would have no problem with it.
That's what you would allow? Really? Right?
Yeah, I think so.
The crazy part about it is that I think he believes that's the middle ground position that's going to appeal to people with common sense. And I'm like, no, I actually think that's the worst position. That's the worst position because as a man, right, I'm just kind of like, you wouldn't guide your son in any direction, right? I mean, look, obviously, I think that it would be wrong for him to encourage his son to transition, right? I mean, I think that would be totally wrong. But at the same time, at least he's guiding his son somewhere, right? Just in general, a father, you're supposed to guide your son, right?
See, and that's what, again, so as long as he was there and he made sure he knew that it was what his son wanted, I don't think he would stop. I don't think he would not
Supposed
do
to be
it.
a leader. You're supposed to, help him and to, make sure that he's going in the right direction. The correct answer clearly is, hey, I would discourage my son from transitioning, right? That is the correct answer, right? That is the answer that will actually earn respect for me as a man and to say, okay, I believe that you're taking.
But so, if you discouraged your son from transitioning, they got a job, did whatever they were going to do, left the house, and then transitioned anyways, would you approve of that? Would you disown them? Would you cut them off? Like,
in the correct position. But he can't even say that. And because he can't say that, right? He can't say either way.
and this is my problem with the position. You wouldn't transition a child, even though transitioning a child is like the ideal time because they are developing those secondary sexual characteristics. It's the one time that you would ever be able to alter that naturally without some sort of horrendously invasive surgery that we probably don't even know how to do. You can't say that you want it to happen, but then say, but I would, you come into this problem where you can't say, I would never allow my son to transition, but adults transitioning is okay, because that would imply that there's a potential at some point that your son, when they become an adult, would transition.
as a man, right? Like you don't believe that you're supposed to.
It's why is it not acceptable for children, but it's acceptable for adults?
Guide your son. Like if you're not going to guide your son on this issue, right? Then in what area of life are you actually going to guide your son? Because I think guiding your son in this stage of life, right, on this very issue is what a father is supposed to do, right?
Well, I mean, it's the idea of the nuclear family, is that your family is with you. They're there to help you with problems. They're there to be a sort of support. It's not like you just leave and you completely forget about your family and you never see them again. That's not how that old world thinking worked. You stuck together as a unit, even if you were extended or you were related. Somehow, you were still looked on as family. You were still expected to have a certain amount of innate responsibility towards these people.
This is what being a father is about. And this is very important because if Wes Moore can't lead his son, then how can I trust you to lead the country? Right? How can I trust you to lead a state? A man that can't lead his son cannot lead the country. It's really that simple. If you're not going to step up in this moment as a father and guide your son, then it's like, are you really fulfilling your duties? Right? Seriously. So, it's stuff like this where he's trying to weasel his way out of taking a real position. And it's like, I know what your actual position is based off what you're saying, okay? But because you can't actually really say what you really believe, you end up taking no position, and it just looks even worse, right? It's like, I can respect somebody even if you take the wrong position, even if I disagree with you, and I say, okay, you're a Looney Tune, at least you're taking a position, right?
Well, at the very least, you shouldn't have a position that's contradictory. You should have a logically reasoned position. His position is illogical. He wouldn't want... I don't even remember. It's
At least
just,
you're
it
actually
doesn't
saying
matter.
something. At least you're showing you have a core belief. And it's not that Westmore doesn't have a core belief. It's that he's too much of a coward to say what his core belief is, right? He can't state what the actual position of the Democrat Party is because that's unpopular. But he can't also state his own core beliefs because he doesn't want to lose votes. He doesn't want to piss off the wrong group of people. So it just sounds like he doesn't have a belief at all, right? That's how it comes out. His core belief is whatever he needs to say in order to avoid pissing off
Yeah, his correct position is whatever he thinks he needs to say.
the wrong people and winning elections. And you have to have politicians that actually have litmus test issues. Like, it's actually very important because it demonstrates the
Well,
character of a politician.
you have to have politicians that actually have positions on the issue. You have to have politicians that are actually willing to be forthcoming with their positions on the issue. How can I know that you're going to do what you're going to do if you don't tell me what you're going to do? Based on his answer, if he had the option to get rid of trans healthcare for kids or enact legislation that would allow trans healthcare for kids, what would he decide? Which way would he go? Which way would he flip? The one or the other? Based on this answer, I don't know. He sounds like he wouldn't want his son to transition, but at the same time, it sounds like if his son wanted to transition, he wouldn't disallow them from doing it.
Is
It
a
kind of
politician
it
willing
kind of
to
sounds
say
to me like he would allow children to transition, even though he has issues about
whatever,
it.
or to take whatever position for votes? In the case of Westmore, it matters because there are allegations that he lied about his college education. He lied about winning an award in the military. He said he had an award before he actually got the reward. He also lied about his great grandfather or something like that being run out of the country by white people when he voluntarily left, right? It just didn't happen. The stuff that he claimed. So when you have these
I do remember
allegations
that.
of lies, right? You're telling lies about your life in order to move up in politics. Again, it creates a pattern. It's like, okay, dude, you're willing to say anything for power, right? You're willing to do anything. You're willing to lie about your life to gain political power. You're willing to not stand up for your own core beliefs, right? What you know is right.
Well,
You're not willing
honestly, that's the problem with liars. If you know that someone has lied before, how do you know that what they're telling you now is the truth? They've already told you once something that wasn't real. This is the boy who cried wolf. If you continue to lie, you're eventually going to get to the point where people aren't going to believe your lies, even if what you're saying isn't actually a lie.
stand up for other people's daughters, even though you know they're being forced to compete unfairly because you want to win elections, right? You want power. You cannot say with a straight face that you wouldn't allow your son to go through a gender transition because you don't want to piss certain people off. Again, it's a character test, right? It's the same patterns over and over and over again. It showed this guy, he's willing to say anything. He'll literally say anything for power. He's a prostitute for power, just like the rest of the Democrat Party.
Fully, by the way, just my crew came in here, okay? And I was coming from the other building. I came on this side. They said, Pat, I got to tell you something. What's that? I like him a lot. That's all they're telling me. I freaking like this guy a lot. Right there, he's looking, waving, going like this. I got, look at these guys. I like him a lot. I don't know. I like him a lot. So something tells me, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think it would happen to your son because of the way you've raised him. So that I don't even think that's a thought that you have. But maybe let me rephrase.
Well, he wouldn't allow it. Let's be real. He wouldn't allow it. But he can't say that out loud, right? Because again, he doesn't want to piss off the mob.
Raise the question on what some people have a hard time with.
Yeah.
Okay. So I used to live in Glendale, California. I went to Glendale High School. So I lived in California most of my life. If you ask me what freeways I know on the back of my hand, it's anything in LA I know, all of them. 4052, 170, 134, 145, you name them, I know. Okay.
Okay. Fair enough.
If all of a sudden you've raised your kids in a certain way, and say you put them in a Christian private school till 5th grade.
See, I guess I don't understand what raising them in a certain way does. If the argument is that people are born trans, it's when you allow them to transition, then then the environment doesn't matter. If they're naturally feminine, they're going to naturally gravitate towards feminine things. I don't think being in Catholic school is going to change that.
Your son has never brought anything up. In 5th grade, your wife gets fired, and you were relying on that $72,000 a year income that she had. She hasn't found a job to replace that income. You guys talk and you say, babe, I think we got to do public school. You put your kids in public school, and all of a sudden you notice 6 months, 12 months later, your son is behaving in a weird way. And then he has support with a teacher. They build a relationship. And then you find out that the teacher, maybe as part of the LGBTQ community, is encouraging your son, who's never, since he was in 5th grade, ever brought this up, now because of a couple friends and a teacher.
Well, because how do you know that they weren't harboring these feelings the whole time, and they just didn't feel comfortable telling you because of the setting that they were in? Because they were I don't want to say disincentivized. I mean, to be frank, it wouldn't be something that you would probably want to talk about.
He is thinking about taking puberty blockers to go through the transition. As a parent, how informed would you like to be when that teacher is talking to your kid and is persuading them? And what position would you have to say, wait a minute, I've never seen any signs like this. Why are you going through it right now? Would you then say, son, if you do want to get on puberty blockers and transition under the age of 18, I'll support you? Or would you say, no, we got to kind of get to the bottom of this?
Well, because even the way that he asks the question is a very veiled way of asking the questions. What he's really asking is, would you allow people under the age of 18 to transition? That's ultimately what he's asking. Now, what is his answer going to be? And I can almost guarantee to you his answer is going to be, yes, people under 18 should be allowed to transition.
I don't care whether we're talking about puberty blockers or whether we're talking about what type of math you're learning. I want to be involved. You know what I mean? Like, I'm an involved parent. My wife is an involved parent. And I just think it's very important for parents to be involved in everything that happens with their child. And that's why I think that anything that happens in...
What do you think about parents being involved in teen takeovers? Do you think that's acceptable? Do you think that that's something that should happen?
In a school should be a joint process between the teachers and the parents.
Just notice how he's not answering the question, bro. Just tell us. Would you allow your son to transition?
Well, no.
Or no?
So, in this hypothetical scenario, at what point does the teacher confront the parents and be like, hey, your child has been telling me that they don't feel like they're sex and they want to transition?
Would you allow it or not? Yes or no? He keeps saying, oh, I want to be involved. I want to be involved. That's his wink and a nod. Listen, I'm not going to allow my son to do it, but I can't say it out loud. No, I don't want to piss certain people off, but I'm trying to tell you, I want to be involved, AKA no, right? But he can't say it. Why can't you just say it?
Always. And no matter what.
So parents should know what's happening. Teachers can't keep a secret away from...
PBD, you got to press him on why he's not answering the question. Don't let him slither out
from parents and not informing them what conversations they're having.
I think parents have to be involved.
I know, but I'm saying there's a lot of parents that maybe don't have the luxuries that you and I have, who don't make the money that maybe we make. And, you've done well for yourself. You're taking care of your finances over the years. You were in the military. You give me the vibe of somebody that's made good decisions. You were an investment banker. You've done well for yourself.
Yeah.
But some of the people that don't have that luxury, here's what I think is going to happen. The reason why I'm asking this question, when I talk to Stephen A's like, nope, full stop. I got a daughter. Men, no, not going to happen. Yeah. I think 2028 election is going to be the most free agency election. And I actually think whatever Kalshi's got you right now is not the right number. I think if anybody's a betting man right now and is willing to put a little bit on Kalshi to say, hey, who I think has a potential of doing something that could have a plus minus, I would support, if you got, like you go to Kentucky Derby, I like to go to Kentucky Derby a lot, and you'll have 3 horses on the final race. If you want to vote, and
for all you know, there could be some up-and-comer who isn't even on that list yet, who could completely sweep all of them. And yet you've already cast your vote. Hold on, I gotta fix this. And we're back.
And, support somebody on the Democratic ticket. I think I would put you as a long shot because I don't think it's a long shot. I really don't. I really believe in your abilities to go through this next phase. Charming, likable, military background. You flirted with being a Republican back in the days.
Condoleezza. I saw you were out today, and I saw someone with a sticker in their back window, and it was Veterans Against Trump.
PBD dropped the ball on this, bro. Why are you kissing up to this guy? There's nothing talented about him, right?
Well, I mean, he said it because there are people on his studio staff who like this guy. And he doesn't want to piss them off.
Listen. If you actually listen to what he's saying, you can tell he's not saying anything because, again, he does not feel strongly.
Well, because he is pushing him on it. It's why he continues to ask the question. It's why he reframed the question the way that he did, because he really wasn't satisfied with his answer.
In his core beliefs, in his core values enough to buck the Democrat Party, right? To stand up for what he knows is right. He can't even say with a straight face that he would not allow his son to transition under the...
See, because he doesn't think so. He thinks that people should be allowed to transition. He just thinks that it should be a researched, well-thought-out position. Which, again, if you think that adults should transition, then yes, you think that it should be a well-thought-out transition, like with kids.
Age 18, he can't even say that with a straight face. But yeah, PBD is kissing this dude's ass. Oh, he's so great. He's so... No, he does not have the potential to run for president. He's not as slick as Gavin Newsom, right? He's not as talented as Newsom. But he'd probably be a good VP, right? He'd be a good VP. That is his ceiling, right? Okay, that is his ceiling.
See, but why, when he has the positions he does?
But I'm telling you, he's an example of what Democrats are going to push as a moderate. Well, see, this is the reasonable Democrat. But listen, if you listen to what he's saying is not reasonable. He's not saying,
Democrats
he's not standing up anything.
Democrats don't have a ticket. They don't know who they want there.
Advocating for liberals to be able to do whatever they want on this issue, and in the courts, Democrats are going to stop conservatives from enforcing common sense. That's what he actually believes. That's the real position.
This election is going to be like 20 Democrats to like 5 Republicans. It's going to be just nonsense.
Democrats. That's effectively what they would do. Okay. And I wish PBD would have really drilled out on that, because he definitely allowed Westmore to weasel out.
You've got this Westmore. Stephen A. is supposedly running for president. Do you think Cenk Uygur on the Young Turks, do you think he's going to run again? I said Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart already. Kamala's thinking of running again? I mean...
what should have been a yes, no question, right? A very easy and simple answer for a Democrat who is trying to run.
I got
as a
6
common
people
sense
right there.
Democrat or a moderate. But like I said, these Democrats are not moderate, right? There is no such thing. They pretend to be moderate, but they're not. Okay. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe.
Oh, I mean, a Democrat who doesn't answer questions and just spins around? That's unheard of. I mean, it's like just because you say things that are true and they're related to the question, they think that they answer the question, but they didn't. They have to answer it in a roundabout way. Well, I would want to be involved if my kid transitioned. So you would want your kid to transition, you would just want to be a part of the process. Like, they tell you what they think. They just disguise it in word salad so that you really have to you have to critically think. You have to actually take their words and think about what the words mean in context.